All right, turn to this now. The Department of Small Business Development has been allocated just over 2.4 billion rands for the 2024-2025 financial year. Minister Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams presented the budget last week, Friday, where she highlighted 5 main areas of focus, which includes market access and localization. She joins us now on the route, I suppose, of also launching what is called an incubation and digital hub in the Western Cape ahead of the official opening of Parliament. Minister, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time this evening. First and foremost, I mean, let's start on last week, Friday. You presented a budget of 2.4 billion rands. In honest truth, you've got a funding gap in SMEs that is sitting at 350 billion rands. So we are not expecting that you're going to fund all these SMEs, but where are you going to find the money to close that gap?
Well, Thabo, good evening to you and your viewers in their respective places. If you had followed our budget vote, we did indicate that last year or in the previous financial year, we had launched and got the funding policy for SMMEs approved by Cabinet. Now, what that meant is some of the proposals that we made in that policy was to establish a fund of funds. We use this route because we do recognize that there's a gap, which is estimated to be at 350 billion rands by the IMF. Now, in order to make sure that we bridge the gap, once we established the fund of funds, we had made a proposal to utilize funds from the Enterprise Supplier Development Funds, which are 3% of the big companies. And then we requested to use 1%, starting with our state-owned entities, which have not spent on the funds. And that's a proposal that we made to National Treasury. And then the private sector itself to make its own contribution. I'm aware that we may not be able to reach 350 billion at a go, but we believe that at least that's a good start for us to be able to leverage on the existing funds to bridge the gap. But secondly, we're also partnering with other departments, because one of the critical decisions that we took was to ensure that we take an ecosystem approach, wherein not everything must be dependent on the department, because we are aware that the entire government has a 30% procurement policy that goes to SMMEs. Now, to coordinate some of those initiatives, including the financing from certain departments, like the Department of Labor, which we have partnered with, and we are going to be receiving about 3 billion rands from them, partnering with the Department of Higher Education and Training, wherein they already gave us 600 million plus, and other initiatives that we're working on with other departments to say, let's all come together, because we had said through SMMEs, we can be able to transform our economy and create the jobs that we so need as the country. And Thabo, believe you me, all parties in the GNU do agree that the best way to go by addressing unemployment is to invest in small businesses, which is why all those efforts are going to be supported by all cabinet ministers, including the private sector that we had already engaged.
Yeah. Now, the last time we spoke to you was around March. You were at the GEC and Africa engagement with some of the stakeholders from the continent. And coming out of that, you would have also highlighted the challenge of streamlining regulatory framework. So you've got 2 currently that you're dealing with. You've got the National Small Enterprise Amendment Bill. You've got the National Integrated Small Enterprise Development Master Plan. How far are you as far as that is concerned? I see the policy on SMME and cooperative funding policy. You've put that across the line. What is happening with those 2 policy frameworks?
The NISED, which is the National Integrated Small Enterprise Development Framework, has been approved. Now, as we were tabling our priorities for this financial year and this term, we are focusing on the game changers that we have identified in that NISED. Remember, the NISED is the one that focuses us on an ecosystem approach, which is why I was able to talk about the contributions by the private sector on the work that we are doing. It cuts across, as we know, was on the game changers. We're not only looking at financing, we're also looking at issues of localization and access to markets. we are looking at issues of ensuring that we build entrepreneurship. Because now, Thabo, you get lots of people, when you invite small businesses, people come and complain that government is not supporting them. And when you ask what they do, I've never done anything. I registered a CK. I registered a company, but my company has never received any business. And this is when we had said it's important that we partner with the Department of Education so that that awareness is given, that people must know that when they register companies, it doesn't mean that they are business people. It is what they produce or that they are able to do that makes them to be in business. And therefore, we come in to help develop those businesses. But of course, this is not work that can be done overnight. Hence, our game changers also are long-term based, as much as we are saying there's certain things that we must kickstart doing.
So
now,
sorry, let me just jump in here. Your biggest game changer, many would have said, we want to see how you're going to reduce the administrative burden. In other words, things like what you had promised to do, business licensing policy being drastically reviewed.
Well, we refer to it as dealing with the red tape or the red tape reduction.
Yeah.
Now, when you deal with red tape, it means you also do an assessment of existing legislations. And on those legislations, you identify those that are prohibiting effective participation of SMMEs in the different sectors, which is why we, through the study that we did, we outlined more than 27 pieces of legislations that needs to be reviewed. Our sector policy unit is busy with those now. We table those to Cabinet to say, Minister of Tourism, these are the challenges that you are faced with a particular legislation. I'm making an example. Minister of COGTA, these are the challenges that we're faced with in relation to licensing by municipalities, whether we talk about the issues of rezoning, when people want land, whether we talk about bylaws that are excluding people, all those we have listed. Now, we have to make sure that we engage those departments. As I'm speaking to you right now, Thabo, last year in the 6th administration, Minister Motsoaledi issued the white paper on immigration, if you recall. The second one was done by the former Minister of COGTA, Ms. Thembinga Dimeng, who also issued regulations and directives that talk to the bylaws for municipalities. This is why, from our side, we issued the policy on the business licensing that will in turn be able to introduce a bill to Parliament. All of this is to deal with these different areas of red tapes that we're talking about. I've just spoken on the legislative side, which seeks to promote not only township businesses, but to promote also certain segments of the sectors that we're talking about. People are complaining that in their areas, big businesses are coming to open shops, therefore closing out to the small business.
So you're saying there are 13 areas, particularly that you would need to facilitate access for small businesses. I can say to you, one of the things that they would want to hear you speak about is, are there trade agreements that enable small MMEs, for example, to thrive? Because they are being throttled by big corporations.
There are trade agreements in place wherein we have asked the big corporates to unbundle their value chains. Once more, it is about what is available that our SMMEs can offer to the big business, which is what we are doing with the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. I spoke earlier on about the sector policy unit, that the research and sector policy that we have. The reason we're doing that is because we don't want SMMEs to be all over. We really want to build specialized SMMEs. If we are saying when they are making a dress, then let them make sure that at least buttons come from small businesses. And therefore we create that pool, or we build from that pool, because our entrepreneurs are doing lots of work. So that's what we are doing. Going back to that National Integrated Small Enterprise Development Framework, it therefore brings all the ecosystem players to say, how do we collaborate? Which areas do we unbundle for the SMMEs? Because again, it's not like the legislation was not there before. It was there, but of course, people will always run away or try to just tick some boxes by making sure that there's no impact. And this is where we are focusing on in this administration. The second aspect is that of localization tab.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of things that are being produced in South Africa, but they don't find expression in the markets because people opt to go and buy those things overseas and in other countries.
So, I mean, somebody said to me, what is the challenge? I must ask the minister, what is the challenge with protecting local industries? What are you finding difficult about that?
We're not really finding it difficult, except to say there are loopholes in our legislation, which is what we are trying to address. I'm going to make an example by the fact that you see lots of hair salons being owned by foreign nationals in our own country. I'm just making an example.
Yeah.
Now, that tells you that there's a gap in the market and the legislation. To start with, the Business Licensing Act that is there is old as 1991, which is what I said now. We are working on repealing certain aspects of it and making amendments. The second aspect is the lack of enforcement of existing legislations, whether you look at the compliance that is supposed to be driven by the Department of Health, Labor, or the district municipalities, as the existing laws give certain functions to the district municipalities. The third aspect is when people, where there are bylaws, they are not even enforcing those, or you find out that those that are enforcing, they're using the old act that again discriminates against certain small businesses. Yeah. So all those, they require a coordinated approach, which is why we said we can't do this just as national alone. We need all the departments involved, but at the side of it, we need the municipalities to come on board. Now, once we address those, deal with the legislation that has the gap, then we are able to address the challenges that you're talking about. I said Minister Motsoaledi issued the white paper on immigration. I spoke about Minister Nkadime. Minister Nxesi also issued the National Labour Policy on immigration. All of these different aspects that need all of us to come together, because one department can play its role, but if the other legislations in other departments are not responding to this, then we're not able to achieve the results that we want to achieve. Yeah. So that's why I unpack and emphasize the need for us to deal with the legislative prescripts that are in place that are prohibiting all these things that we are complaining about. Certainly. South Africa is a long-term term.
Yeah. No, indeed.
So all of us really have to make it our business to make sure that the law works for the people.
The final leg then is part of what you are busy with in the Western Cape, capacity building, right? Making sure that you give support, tech support to small businesses. Tell us about the incubation and the digital hub.
Well, the incubation is part of our game changer number 3, actually, that talks to refueled incubators, wherein we are saying there's a need for us to make sure that we provide incubation centers to entrepreneurs who are still startups. Secondly, when we do that, we don't only provide office space, we provide equipment or technologies that they need in order to build prototypes out of the ideas that they have. But at the same time, we open an opportunity to existing entrepreneurs that are still struggling with certain things like accessing financing, what is the best model that they can go for, and therefore they are offered some entrepreneurial skills of how to stay in business in terms of sustainability. What is it that you must have and look for when you're applying for funding? So here in Michelle's Plain today, a great story that has been inspired by 2 people, one a gentleman, one a lady who grew up from Michelle's Plain, who saw the challenges that they went through when they were young, who then, upon making it in life, felt it is important that they respond to our application of saying, because we have committed to South Africa that we want to enhance or improve on township businesses, and therefore at the center of that is providing centers like this to township entrepreneurs. They grabbed that opportunity and said they want to plow back in Michelle's Plain, and therefore worked with the community. And all we did was to work with them and make sure that we provide funding, seed funding for the incubator, the equipment that they are buying. Again, it's a great story because I said the responsibility towards instilling that spirit of entrepreneurship lies with everyone, but we champion that to promote entrepreneurship in this country. And therefore, all the critical aspects can be left behind. Earlier on, I said people register companies and they say they're business people. It means there is a thinking in mind that people would want to earn certain things, but others will then want to wait for tenders, for example.
Yes.
Now they are given an opportunity to say, you can think, utilize the equipment that is here to see if your idea can build something. And that's the opportunity that is presented today to the young people, young and old, in Michel's Plain, to say they are given an opportunity to turn things around, tell their own story of Michel's Plain, so that me and you tomorrow, one day, can take pride in the fact that I'm wearing this that was produced in Michel's Plain, or I'm using whatever application or software that was produced in Michel's Plain, just like we learn about other townships and other countries that are doing well.
Minister, appreciate your time. Let's leave you there, and thank you very much for coming on this evening. As the Minister of Small Business Development there on her budget vote, but also the incubation as well as digital hub being launched there in Mitchell's Plain.